All right. Hey, how's everybody doing? I hope you guys are having a fantastic evening. I wanted to come on and speak with you for a couple of minutes. Some things that I've been kind of thinking about here. I try to follow the economic news as closely as I can. A lot of the times I don't interpret it, I guess, correctly. I'm still pretty new at some of this stuff, right? But I follow the commodities, right? I'm following, the numbers on crude oil, the prices of gold and silver. I'm following the jobless claims every Thursday. All of this information is important. The inflation rates, this website Trading Economics it's a very good website to follow this kind of thing, right? It just gives you like a general overview. But I mean, following the prices of everything from oil to, gold to soybeans, following just the general indexes, the SPY, the Dow, all of this stuff is very important. But or the jobs market, right? The housing market, all of this, these are important numbers. But numbers that we should be following as well is actually crime. And there isn't, to my knowledge, really like a crime index that you can follow day by day. But there's no doubt that, crime in the United States, because that's where I'm from, that's where I live, is on the rise. There's no doubt about this at all. I mean, if we just look in my city, right? I just typed in crime, Norfolk, Virginia. It's one story after another. Police identify suspect in shooting at Norfolk Social Security Administration office building. 2 people shot, one believed to be the suspect at Social Security building, right? So this is a pretty big story right now. But we also have, man dies in overnight shooting on Tidewater Drive, Norfolk. Former Norfolk pastor accused of attempted sex crime. So, crime is off the charts in this country. And, there's a lot of desperate people out there, a lot of deranged people. This is the kind of thing that comes along with economic turmoil, political turmoil, but on the mainstream media, all you're going to hear about right now is the Trump impeachment trial, right? A guy that isn't even in office anymore, and they're trying to impeach him. There was something earlier today about a phone call that just came out. I mean, it's a manufactured reality, and people that actually buy into this, whether they're watching the impeachment or the Super Bowl, in my opinion, they are completely delusional. But just as I've been following, commodities, the indexes, following different currency, the foreign exchange markets, just as I've been following all of this, following the charts, charting my supply areas, my demand areas. I think it's also just as important to watch crime, and you got to be careful with the information. When you're looking into crime, you got to be careful about the information and sort of how you filter it. You'll see stuff pop up like this, right? Like crimes against Asian Americans are on the rise. Well, that's a fraction of the story, right? Crimes against everyone are on the rise. But to be politically correct and to sort of fit into this, Marxist narrative, they always got to single out one group or, patronize to a particular group. It's just the political climate that we're in. But I would say crimes against, everyone is on the rise. And, the longer that we have people locked in their homes, the longer that we have, that America bleeds 1 million jobs every single week, the longer that we have people dependent on stimulus. There are desperate people out there. There are deranged people out there. And that's probably one of the most dangerous types of people are the desperate and the deranged. And this, scamdemic, all of this nonsense is only making it worse. I will talk a little bit about the pandemic because, it does appear that people apparently are getting sick, but 400,000 people dying in the United States, I don't know, right? I just don't know. They've lied about so many things that it's hard for me to really take them seriously. But what I can say is that, this stabby, I don't trust it. I won't be going to get a shot. And, I certainly am not trying to have them stick a Q-tip up my nose. What are they doing? In my opinion, they're probably altering, with the genetic code. For all we know, the science is so advanced, and they don't really tell us exactly, what they'll tell us why they want us to get this, this shot. But, are they testing other technologies? Are they developing other technologies, sort of using the, CV as a cover story? We just don't know, right? I don't want to be too conspiratorial about it, but, the same thing with all of these numbers, it's so hard to, like I said, the reality is just, it's manufactured. But going back to crime, pay attention, because if there were crime charts, like just as we follow, the spy, right? Like I can pull up the spy right here. Just as we follow this chart, we should be following crime charts. And if anybody has a chart that actually illustrates crime levels, definitely point me in that direction, because I just don't know of one. But just paying attention to it in general, I do think it's getting more dangerous out there. I can say just driving, I've seen a lot more road rage. And maybe that's because I'm living in a bigger city. Maybe it's always been that way. But, growing up, I don't really remember the level of road rage that I'm seeing out there. People get shot all the time, over fender benders. And I guess what I'm saying is just keep your eyes and your ears open. Try to consume as much information as you can, and as much information from alternative sources, or using your own methodology, right? It's not that you have to climb all the way down, the conspiracy rabbit holes, but have your own methodology on how you find and source and filter through information, because what they're giving us, what they're giving to us on a silver platter by the mainstream media ought to be rejected, right? Everything that they serve us on a silver platter, including, Amazon and everything like this, needs to be rejected. But, crime is definitely on the rise. Something else that to be paid attention to, in my opinion, and this is something that I've been trying to follow now for a few months, but, the Fed. Right? What is the Fed doing? What is the Fed talking about? What are they not talking about? I think while the impeachment trial is going on, or while people are watching, sports, watching the Super Bowl, these are the policies that are actually going to affect you, right? Well, what the Fed is doing and what they're saying, what they're talking about, what they're going to do, this is actually going to have a real effect on your life. And many of us, we don't follow it, right? For a very long time. I barely even knew what the Fed was. The Fed, it's our central bank here in the United States. I think there's 12 different regional banks, and it's a pretty complicated system, but the point is that these people print the money. So, we do have the Fed saying that central bank support, aka stimulus programs, are going to remain in place for a very long time, right? And I've been talking about UBI. I think basically what we're seeing is, especially with Biden's $1.9 trillion stimulus plan, if they are able to just force that through, take the money, right? Like, take the money and do something, put it towards your survival. Absolutely. But this is, I do believe, the beginnings of a universal basic income, and they're talking about raising minimum wage to $15 an hour. But the central banks are telling us that, this kind of support is going to remain in place for a long time. And it's not just that. It's, they're buying treasuries, they're buying corporate debt. It's really kind of crazy how far this has gone. Here's another headline from the Financial Times recently. Senior Fed official shrugs off inflation risks from stimulus plan, we already see the inflation, right? We see the elevated stock prices. We see the price of gold and silver and other commodities going up. Paying attention to commodities, the CRB. Let me see if I can bring this up real quick. The inflation is here, guys. Commodities are on the rise. You can see it from this chart here. Commodities are only going to become more and more expensive, and paying attention to the dollar chart, right? Like we can look at the DXY, though this isn't the only way to measure the dollar. It's it's an interesting chart to pay attention to. We've pulled back the last couple of days. Some people believe that we're going to go lower than this. When you look at a higher time frame of the DXY, let me see if I can bring this up here. If you look at a higher time frame of this chart, let's say 25 years. Let's look at the last 50 years. It is possible that we go lower than this, right? We've been in the past 50 years, we've been as low as like 72, and that was back in 2008. So is it possible that we go lower? Most definitely, but it does look like the dollar has been gaining strength the past couple of weeks. But paying attention to these things, this is really what matters. This is what's important. This is what we need to have our eyes on. We need to figure out how we're going to survive what's coming, right? We need to be able to see what's coming, but we also need to figure out how are we going to survive what's coming. But senior Fed official shrugging off inflation risks. This guy, Tom Barkin, he's the president of the Richmond Fed. And like I said, the Fed is broken up into 12 different regional banks. Funny number, right? 12. 6 plus 6. I won't get into the esoteric here, but he says that, they do expect short-term price volatility is what they call it. Short-term price volatility. Our commodities are going to be as volatile as Bitcoin, perhaps. Let's hope not. He says, I'm keeping my focus on medium-term inflation expectations. I still think there are a lot of people out of work who need a bridge to the other side, and I'm supportive of what we can do to help them. But who put them out of work? Right? It was the government. Right? It wasn't no CV. It wasn't a disease. It was the government that put these people out of work. It was the decisions of the U.S. government, the state governments, the city governments that have, it's the reason all these people are out of work. Not to mention, the slave labor, all the jobs, leaving them. I'm not going to get into all of this, right? You guys already know what it's about. But they're really trying to push through a $1.9 trillion stimulus plan. A lot of people, especially those making under $50K, would receive about $1,400. Janet Yellen, she's the new U.S. Treasury Secretary and also a former Fed chair, right? This is important to point out, too, because it's a revolving door, whether we're talking about, agriculture and some of the agriculture corporations, kind of a revolving door with the government agencies that deal with agriculture. Well, it's the same thing with the monetary system. The Treasury secretaries are often from the Fed, and they just sort of go back and forth. She has also dismissed concerns of inflation, and they keep talking about the inflation expectation, right? They want people to expect inflation. They want us to expect it and to, basically be waiting for it, right? So they're really trying to, they pretend like, oh, we don't have enough inflation, but we see the inflation. We see it in food prices. We see it in commodity prices. We see it in the price of stocks and different assets like gold and silver. So the inflation is here. Housing, all of it. Things are, the monetary supply right now is been expanded. The dollar definitely doesn't buy as much as it did last year, or it definitely not, as much as it did 50 years ago, right? I mean, in essence, you could say that the dollar has already sort of collapsed, right? I mean, if we go back on this chart, all time here, this goes back to 1980. Look at the highs from 1980. Look at the highs from 71 back here, right? In essence, you could say the dollar has kind of collapsed. I mean, we've never seen the highs that we did back then when it comes to at least the DXY chart. And again, that's not the only way to measure the dollar. but it is important. But yes, you have the Fed shrugging off inflation risks from the stimulus plan. The stimulus is, it may fix a few short-term pains, but is $1,400 going to fix the problem? Is $1,400 going to get the jobs back? Is $1,400 going to save people that have not paid rent in 6 months? These are the kind of things that I'm very concerned about, just as an American and as a fellow human being. The Fed also going along with this climate change, stuff. I mean, it's not to say that the climate doesn't change, but, is it man-made? The climate has been changing ever since, God created the earth. But you see the Fed going along with this, and climate change seems to be coming up more and more, because eventually they're going to have to retire this, scamdemic thing. They're going to have to retire it. And so climate change is going to be the way that, they continue to cut the jobs, continue to bring in the automation, continue to reduce, how many resources you're allowed to use. Climate change is going to be the Trojan horse for this global reset, the NWO, whatever you want to call it. Okay. Following commodities, crude oil at $58 a barrel, over $58 a barrel still. It seemed like the markets were kind of trading off of solely oil today. Like oil had a much bigger influence. We have been seeing tech kind of either pulling back or bouncing around. The fintech has actually been doing really well. PayPal and Square are at all-time highs. You also have gold and silver. Still relatively strong. Silver over $27 an ounce. I really wish that would drop. I found a silver eagle for $30 a couple of days ago. I went ahead and grabbed that. I found it on the app OfferUp, which was pretty cool. Gold at about $18.35. I read somewhere, was it wheat? It might have been wheat, or it might have been soybeans. Yeah, it was wheat. Yeah, they're at a 6 and a wheat per bushel is at a 6.5 year high. So again, pay attention to these basic commodities prices, because it's going to affect the prices, at the store. We talked about the dollar here, right? The dollar has pulled back the last couple of days. This is a daily chart on the DXY, but I do think we could see some strength. I guess the last thing I'll say is that a lot of these commentators online, they want us to believe in the hype against the dollar, right? They want us to believe the bear case for the dollar, that the dollar is going to, collapse tomorrow, and you need to have all your money in gold or all your money in shitcoin. And wait, actually, I'll say something about shitcoin a little bit later too before I go. But with the dollar, I think it's completely delusional to expect this to collapse tomorrow. This is the global reserve currency. This is the monetary system that the entire world is dependent on. I do think we are going to go to more of a digital dollar currency. And when that happens, you're going to want to be holding the real hard cash. Even though the currency has been debased, right? We went from silver quarters and silver dimes to now copper quarters, copper dimes. We went from copper pennies to now zinc pennies, and they may even start issuing out zinc quarters that are copper plated eventually. Just as they keep debasing this currency, the real thing becomes more valuable, right? Like the silver quarters are much more valuable than they were when they were actually the currency. One dime, if you went and cashed that mercury dime in, you could buy a candy bar, right? You could buy a candy bar with it 60 years ago, and you can still buy a candy bar with the amount of dollars that it's worth. But just as they've gone from, silver quarters to copper quarters, they've gone from copper pennies to zinc pennies. I think the next step is just the complete, what's the word? Digitalization. I can't say the word right now. Digitizing. That's the next step, to digitize the monetary system. And when that happens, I think even the debased cash, right, even the copper quarters, even these zinc pennies are going to be even more valuable. think of silver certificates, for instance, right? Those go for about $2 to $3 sometimes, so that's double, even triple what their face value, a $1 silver certificate. If you bought that for $3 at a coin dealer, that's triple the face value, right? And that's just cold hard cash. It's not really backed by anything anymore. It's more of a, it's kind of like a collector's thing. But I do think cash, having some bankroll, having some paper currency, absolutely important, because when they do move to the digital dollar, it's going to be harder to get the cash, right? Already the banks are not trying to give out a lot of cash. I've been trying to get as much bankroll and quarters and coins that I possibly can, because, I think eventually it's going to be like a commodity, right? Businesses are going to need it. People are going to need it for exact change. You could barter and trade with rolls of dimes, rolls of quarters. Maybe a more apocalyptic scenario, it would just be good to have some of it, right? But I also think once it's gone, people are going to hoard it, right? Once it's gone, once we move to the digital dollar, once they stop printing this stuff, and it's all just digits on a screen, it's going to become more valuable. People are going to want it. People are going to collect it. People are going to barter with it. People are going to trade with it, right? You may even be able to get silver for it. So, pay attention to that. But, and I would say stack copper, stack bankroll, stack cash, along with your precious metals, even though it's been debased. But the end goal is to debase the currency into its most debased form, which would be the exclusively digital version of it all. And then with Bitcoin, right? I think I could actually, let me see here. We've got Bitcoin. Bitcoin is actually a form of foreign exchange. I love how on Trading Economics they have, Bitcoin against the USD as a foreign exchange unit. But right now at $46,000, we know about the Elon Musk news or the Tesla news buying it now, in my opinion. I think there are going to be a lot of people that rush into this, and, it's unfortunate, right? It's unfortunate, but maybe this goes to the moon. Maybe it goes to a million, but can these people actually liquidate? The other thing I'll say is, what happens when they cut the power off, right? How good are these shit coins if you don't have access to electricity, if you don't have access to a computer, if you don't have access to the internet? We know that they're catching all kinds of international criminals that have used Bitcoin. They're catching these guys somehow, right? We're being told, oh, it's completely untraceable and, it protects your privacy. But all of this is nonsense. People actually think that this wasn't, set up by the government itself, which I think is very naive. But, those are the same people that think the internet came out of the private sector. No, these things were definitely created and made by the government. Social media was never about us expressing ourselves or us having, connections with people all throughout the world. No, it's always been about collecting information for ads, but also just surveillance in general. And a lot of people don't know this. This is why I'm bringing it up. You have to, do your own due diligence. Don't just take my word for it. But Bitcoin at $46,000, a coin, quote unquote. This is, I personally don't trust Elon Musk. I don't trust, what he's telling us. I generally don't trust people that work that closely with the government. They're pretty tight. And, I think this most recent propaganda for Bitcoin, the whales need to dump it onto somebody, right? They need a greater fool to sell it to, and I'm not going to be that guy, right? Maybe I'm kind of old school, but I'm wearing about $300 worth of silver jewelry right now, and probably more than that actually. I've got a couple chains around my neck. I got a bracelet. I don't know if you guys can hear it on the microphone. I've got, I don't know, maybe $100 worth of rings on. The way I see it is, if you can't hold it, you don't own it, right? And I don't like this, just because if the internet goes down tomorrow, these shit coins aren't going to be worth nothing. But you should see the comments, a lot of the Elon fanboys coming out of the woodwork when you go to even just be skeptical of cryptocurrency, of Bitcoin. These Elon Musk fanboys come out of the woodwork, and they're not happy about it, right? They're not happy about it. And that's what I was talking about in yesterday's video. I feel like a lot of people on social media feel the pressure to be bullish on Bitcoin because all the cool kids, right? The CNBC crowd, the Pomplianos are bullish on Bitcoin. And, but at the same time, it's also cool to be bearish on the dollar, right? That's where I think it gets kind of delusional. These Bitcoin bulls, they also tend to be the dollar bears. And I'm sorry, I just don't buy that story. I think the dollar will be around for quite some time. And if we are going to move to cashless or digital currencies, it's going to be what the central bank wants it to be, right? They're not going to, just allow us to price things and trade in a currency that they don't control. I don't believe that. This whole decentralized finance thing, it's kind of a ploy, right? This, like I said, it's the same crowd that believes the internet came out of the private sector. So I guess I've said enough in this video. You guys let me know what you think in the comment section down below. What's on your watch list? Where are you putting your money? What are you trading? And make sure to give the video a big fat like. Big shout out to my supporters on Patreon and PayPal, and everyone that's been liking and commenting on my videos. Much appreciated. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your evening. As always, until next time, God bless and stack God's money.